Hello, everyone. We're back. I hope you're well. We've moved on into the next part of the stream where we're not going to be seeing me get smashed up by some guy. Unfortunately, pause. Why? Hold on, I'm going to close the door. And we're going to talk about some streaming. So, we're going to go over to the desktop capture and we're going to watch something really quickly. So, big up the stream in there. Big up all seven of us chilling this evening. I appreciate you. So, you can't hear it right now. We don't need to hear it. But this was something I shot 7 years ago with Boiler Room. So we can get it big on the screen. And my team and I, so I don't remember who was on the team at the time. The only thing I remember about this day, besides it being So Solid Crew, is the fact that my sister was there with me. Well, she came, I was working, and she was in the crowd, and it was jokes. There's a part in this video when I'm actually in the crowd. But, so this happened 7 years ago. Not a dream come true, because I never really dreamed about working with So Solid or anybody like that in the future when I was younger. But me and my sister did listen to, like, So Solid Crew, 21 Seconds, all that when we were younger, innit? So we know the words to all of these tunes. So it's kind of like surreal, because obviously at the time we were youngers, it's just not really the world we were in as well. But yeah, so we're doing this now, and this is what we're going to talk about today is facilitating a workflow like this, because it isn't actually complicated. The complicated part is needing everything together. So just let me know, for example, I'm just going to check on my phone. If you can hear me in the chat, please let me know, because I can hear myself, so it doesn't sound like there's any issue too. I'm just going to open up the chat. Because we're back. We've started again. So let me know. You can skip through some bits of this. I can put the link in the chat if you want. And this looks clean. Yeah, I'm proud of this one still. I need to put this on the CV. But we did shoot about three, I don't know. The number's hard to know. Easily over 100, because we did so many of them in London. And I've worked on ones that I wasn't physically at, but I've done hundreds of Boiler Room shows. So this was one of them. This was one of the better ones still. And yeah, so the team that it would take to pull off something like this could consist of like as many people as you like, depending on the budget. But the core team members that you'd need for something like this, we'll talk about it right now. So we'll come back to that in a second. So as you can see on screen now, we have an image. So we're going to start right in the middle. We have a mixer, the same mixer that we have every week, the same mixer that we use to do the stream. If I could show you on camera, it's literally right under my camera here. So that is the main hub that we're going to be using to connect to everything and then to eventually live stream. Although for this example, we're going to use it as our backup for one reason, because we're going to use the same workflow as we did last week and use vMix to play any graphics, intros or outros. And we're just going to throw a bunch of stuff at it, assuming that a client would want something like that. And we're going to use vMix as our primary streaming output, which is going to go to YouTube. And we'll use the A10 Mini Pro ISO's streaming capabilities to send to the backup. So that's going to be the way we keep vMix integrated. But if you wanted to, and you wanted to use some static images to overlay on your ATEM, you could do that, because that's what we done at the time, because our workflow was slightly different. What we would do is we would connect everything. So we'd connect all of our cameras to our mixer, and then we would connect our mixer to something called a live view, the LU600 to be precise. And basically what that is a cellular bonding unit. And what that allows you to do, I'm going to show you what it looks like. Please let me know if I'm going too fast in the chat. But what the LU600 allows you to do is to send your signal from pretty much anywhere you are in the world. So if you don't have like a laptop, there's different use cases for this device. But the way we were using it is we'd have our mixer, we'd have our SDI output, we'd connect it in. See, these things are not cheap. $550 for a day. It's because of what it allows you to do, which is pretty cool. But trying to zoom in. There we go. Surely I can get a better picture than this. I just did that. I zoomed in on my whole desktop for a hot sec there. Crazy. Let's find a better picture. It's a good picture, a good example to use. So we would have our mixer and we would send our SDI signal out over SDI, plug it in here. And what it allows you to do then is to set your streaming details, and we would use various different workflows at the time. And basically you can either send, if you wanted to send directly to YouTube, you could. So you just insert your RTMP details like we spoke about earlier, your streaming URL and your stream key. You'd click when you're online, because the way this works is a few different ways. That offline button will allow you to get sort of click start, and it will start sending to your destination. The way these work is they have like broadcast SIM cards in them, and what those allow you to do, what this machine does is balances the data from them and allows you to basically use your phone signal, if we're going to just dumb it down, to stream it. That whole device converts that signal into H.264 or H.265, and then it sends it low bit rate, high quality, and there's loads of different things you can do with that device. But its main perk is if you don't have like an internet or Wi-Fi, you can use the SIM cards in there to stream. And when we were in different places around the world that couldn't guarantee internet the same way, we'd bring this device with us, make sure we had enough money to pay for it, which was outside of my remit at the time. But I know it's not cheap, because depending on where you are, it's going to cost a lot of different amounts of money. But we would bring this device with us, and that's what we would use in replacement of vMix. But what we couldn't do with the live view was add overlays and make it a bit more complicated if we wanted to. It was just a signal pass through basically, and that's what we knew at the time, and that's what we did at the time. Now I've learned a bit more about it, and there's a few different things you can do, and there's a few different models. There's like the LU800, which has 4 SDI inputs, which allow you to then do 4 1080p streams, or you could even do 1 4K stream. But they will allow you to do different things. It just really depends on what it is that you need to do. So let me know if I'm moving too fast or if this is mad boring. It doesn't matter. You're going to have to sit and learn it anyway. We're growing our attention span at the same time. So we have our mixer here. We have our vMix, which is our primary stream. We're going to YouTube and Twitch. Twitch has good interaction. It is a live platform mainly anyway. You do have video on demand after, but Twitch is for live. There's not many boiler rooms that I remember mattering when it came to Twitch. There was interaction, but their main home was on YouTube, which is where all the video archive is, all the main streams are, and that's where the main people would interact. And Facebook as well. Facebook was pretty big. So if we look on the right hand side, we have our dance floor. So sorry if I'm not speaking into the mic. I'm trying to make sure you can see me and look at this image at the same time. Anyway, so we have Squidward here doing his thing. And now this is our dance floor. We have our DJ in the front, and we have basically to make sure that the audience is seeing and hearing everything. We also want to give the opportunity for the DJ to speak to the audience. So to enable that to happen, we need a few things. So we need the audio coming out from the CDJs, which is the mixers. This is a simplified version, so if you were on set, you would have much more cables than this, but we're basically just going by input rather than all of the cables that you would need. And even with the CDJ, I want to say that it is a bit more complicated, but anyway. The 4 inputs that we have for our audio mix is the host mic, so that the audience can hear, which is going to be come back and blended in with the other audio inputs. So when the music's playing, if the DJ wanted to, they could either bring down the music and talk, or if they pick up the mic and talk, we can always hear them at a good level so that they can communicate the whole time. Everybody's different. Some people are going to DJ and talk to you the whole time. You know what Tim Westwood is like. So he needs to have his microphone set up to do that. We could do that on a mic stand, because I think when we did, because I've done Tim Westwood before, I've worked with Tim Westwood before. And the only reason why I use him as an example is because he specifically has a mic stand and a sort of stand for his DJ sets. I'm pretty sure some of you have seen him live before and would know what I'm talking about, but other people would just put the mic on the side, pick it up and then put it down, because they're not really going to talk too much because they're so focused on DJing. But we want to give them the ability, or the host, who's the person who is actually talking, taking us through the event and managing us as a crowd, is going to be coming on when all the DJs come and say, oh, thank you, DJ Massey, which my boy Comrade Massey is actually DJing right now, I think, unless it was yesterday and I've miscalculated Instagram. But he's even done a host for Boiler Room. He would come on and say his part, pass it on to the next DJ, and then the set would go on, just so that the people that are watching who aren't sort of in the building know what's going on. So, and you're sort of speaking and sort of riling up the crowd as well. What we'd also need, if we want to rile up the crowd at home, to give them a better feeling of what the people in the room are vibing to, is those ambient mics. So you can see one at the back here and one at the side. What that's going to do is that's going to catch the crowd the crowd noise. So they're singing along. It's not going to be like clear, like we're not pointing a mic at people. We're catching the ambience from the room. We're catching what the atmosphere is with these microphones. So those are our third and fourth inputs, and the second input is the CDJ. So it isn't too complicated. Once you get to a desk, there are things that you need to do, because when you're using a microphone in a room, you don't want to get any reverb, you don't want it to sound wrong. So sometimes, I'm sure you've seen, when you're seeing somebody do a mic test, they'll come up and go, 1, 2, hey, 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 1, 2. What they're doing there, they're looking for frequencies in the room that need to be taken out so that we're not hurting ourselves and everything sounds great. Sound guys are amazing. They've got like the Sharingan. They can see stuff with their ears. It's amazing. But once it gets to the desk and they've balanced it out well, bearing in mind something I didn't mention, what we're talking about is the broadcast mix, because you're going to balance what's going out to the PAs and what the people can hear in the room differently to this. So all of these inputs are coming into the mixer that is going to be doing our broadcast mix down for stream. In the room, you typically would have 2 desks, or if your desk can do it, you can have a second bus and you can output from there your broadcast mix. The problem with that is, unless that person set it up and stays there, and sometimes if you're working at a venue and you have artists there, the venue tech might set it up and then the artist technician might come and use it. it might be a bit complicated for them to understand the buses if they can't just look at them on two separate ones and know, well, cool, the audio guy from the streaming side is handling this desk, and then the venue and is managing the main PA and the artist that's happening in the venue for the people in the venue, because we have to think of those as separately. You wouldn't really want to be sitting in your house and hearing um what it sounds like in the room. You want it to be much clearer. You're going to be wanting to hear, like, when you're obviously in the club, you're not hearing the high fidelity that you would if you were just sitting in your headphones listening to a tune. Obviously, the vibe is different, so it fits what you're doing. But if you're sitting at home, you want the high quality with the good mix. You want everything to be blended so you can sit and enjoy it in good clarity, and also like sort of red light it when you're at home by yourself. So that's what the broadcast mix and the vision mix allows you to do. Once you blend those things together and get the perfect balance, which is what I feel like we did have when we did the UKG show, which again, gassed about, it allows you to come away with something like this. So again, we have our DJ front shot here. That's showing you the main action. Sometimes you could just leave it on this because some DJs are so interesting, and sometimes all the action is just happening behind camera. But then you want sometimes the crowd reaction. You want people sharing beers, having laughs with friends, you know. And that can be done in one of two ways. So if we go back to, for a moment, if we go back to the diagram, there's a second camera right next to the DJ. There's two things you can do with that. Assume that this is the second camera right here because we are right in front of the DJ booth. That one could be on a Magicom. And a Magicom is basically something that you can clamp onto something, screw a camera on the other side, and just perk it up and just allow it to be held. That's likely what the front shot is, because typically in this environment, you're not going to use a tripod because these people are so close to the desk that the desk is shaking. So there's been, I could say at least 100 times, I know minimum 100 times, I've gone running through a club to get to the front to fix the front DJ shot because nobody can see nothing because it's literally fallen over. We'll obviously cut to a different camera, so it's fine. Obviously, we want that main DJ shot and we want all of our camera shots to be good at all times. But these people are so close to the desk. I did a show with Ramon. If you're in the chat, I'm sure you remember this. And you was on camera and I'm holding back. Who was it? Was it those guys? The Pirate DJ guys. I hope you're in the chat still, Ramon. But basically, I think I was on camera and Ramon was holding them back, and then we swapped, and it was just heaving. And it's been like that, the same thing when we did Carnival as well. So you're not going to typically put these cameras on tripods. And if you don't want to use a Magicom for this second shot and you want to use it on a shoulder rig, there's still two ways to do it. You could still run your cables. So if you look in the diagram, all of these are cables and they're sort of being connected to the desk that way. But if you wanted to, you could do it with a wireless transmitter. So these shots, as you can see, we're at eye level. So we're not like the DJ shot looking up, as you can see here. So that one is locked off. You can tell there's no movement there. The second camera is on not a tripod, a shoulder rig. So we've got that camera operator ready to go. This is a shot. If we go back to our diagram, this is the shot right at the back here. Which we have connected by a cable as well. So this is this cable right here. That's catching all of the view from the back. So if people are doing moshing or it's just packed in there and you want to advertise, yeah, we're popping, you cut to that shot there. Cool. Then again, this shot is at one thing I realized, the lasers in this building could have fried these cameras if we were not careful. But the camera that I'm using now, this one actually could be the same camera. You never know. This is a lesson for the future. Lighting makes all the difference. We'll talk about that later with somebody called Otis. He's going to come on and give us a lesson on lighting. So prepare for that. Big up him and I appreciate him coming on. And we also have somebody called Adenike coming on as well. So big up them also, and they're going to be teaching us about what it means to be a DLP and how to make things look amazing. So yeah, you could either do this with a cable, which we have here, and you just have to give it a bit of slack. If you had a bigger team, you'd have somebody called a cable basher, pause, and they would basically make sure that you have enough cable, you're not tripping over nothing, it's not tight, you're just able to get your shot and focus on what you're doing, and nobody in the crowd is going to get in your way, and you just got a tiny bit of security and assurance there. One place that you might see something like that, based on how they use the shots, is in football. If you're really paying attention to the cameras, which most of you likely aren't, or in the UFC, it might be easier to notice that type of thing. So when they're coming down the aisle to walk to the ring, somebody is obviously on a camera moving backwards like this. How are they walking backwards and knowing where they're going? They might know the route, but they have somebody behind them, pretty much their hand on their back, guiding them, making sure if they're not on a wireless transmitter and they're running on cables like fiber optic cables, or I think it's SIMT, they would know where they're going and make sure that they're not tripping up. And you notice that the same thing probably happens for the guys on the ring side, because they're cabled. So when you're watching Bruce Buffer come in the ring, if you watch the guy that goes in, sometimes they'll have somebody with them making sure that they're not tripping up if there's too many people in there. So yeah, you just make sure that when you do wire it up, you have enough slack there on your SDI. And what we're doing, and the reason why we're using SDI for this one, is because of the distance. We're going to assume, because we're in a club, we're not able to sit next to the DJ and do our vision mix there, because nobody wants to see us. We're not part of the illusion. We're part of creating the illusion. And we're going to be somewhere off in the back, maybe even in a different room. Sometimes we'll be in the gallery at the back, because if it's an events venue, they're usually going to have their audio desk pretty much looking at the stage. So sometimes we can get set up with them, but sometimes there's no space for us and we have to go somewhere else. Okay, this is another sick shot. I'm going to put the link for this in the chat quick, because then you can all watch it yourselves. Let's see if we can find me. Certainly being gassed. Does any of that make any sense? I'm trying to talk a bit slower. Yeah, this was a big night still. I'm happy this turned out the way it did. A lot of people go into this. It's not just me. Like, big up all the people that's worked with me on all of these shoots. And yeah, I appreciate you all. I hope some of that made sense. So again, there's a lot of things that happen in events like boiler rooms. So sometimes they're not just DJs, and sometimes the workflow gets 5 times more complicated than this, or sometimes you have to implement this workflow 5 times on the same day in different venues or in different parts of the same building. So keeping it simple is usually sort of super paramount. And also, if you don't want to keep it simple and it is a big event and you do have the budget and you do have the scope to be able to do certain things, you can use companies and technology like Push Live, which basically allows you to ingest, add pre-roll, post-roll. It's got so many good things to it and allows you to send to all the destinations that you need to in such a managed and scheduled way. You can sort of go as complicated as you want. Also with adding things like vMix, it just depends on your scope. But usually what they do is tend to keep it simple, and simple has worked for them and it continues to work for them, which is why they're still popping. I always rate them for that. But the workflow is super simple, and we can go back to, I mean, you can see on screen now anyway, because the desktop is not up. If anybody has any questions about this, please let me know. But I'll just go on for a bit longer. Obviously, you could shoot this if you didn't have the capability for going live, because let's say the venue was 10 meters underground, there's actually no internet there, and there was no way for you to do it. You could implement the same workflow and you just take out the streamer element and it would still all work well in your favor. Or if you really had to and you didn't have any of this equipment, you can go the other route, set up all your cameras or man your cameras if you need to, and press record, cut it down after, and then premiere it on YouTube if you wanted to go live that way. But it just really depends on what you're trying to achieve. I don't really actually have too much to say about this because it's actually not too complicated. It would be cool to answer some questions, but there isn't actually much to say. We've gone over the ambience. You guys all know what parties are like. So this camera that is sitting outside of the dance floor would have been our roaming camera. So if we wanted to add something like a Teradek bolt to that, which I can show you what that looks like, you would, which is a wireless transmitter, you would just, add that onto the back of your camera, and then, yeah, you're good to go. You can stream, you can move around the club, the venue, depending on the size of the Teradek that you get. I was reading about one. Show you. Teradek Bolt 4K array antenna. So basically, what this allows you to do with a SDI or a HDMI is to output the signal from your camera into this. One of them is the transmitter, and the other one is the receiver. So you plug in your HDMI to this, it's going to send this signal over these antennas to this device here. Then basically you would plug this into your mixer, and then that's how you would get from 150 meters away or in a place that isn't able to be cabled, or you'd be able to follow somebody and you'd be able to get your signal with a low latency back to your mixer so you can implement it into the rest of your stream. But we would use these on shows as well to do the roaming camera. So it's pretty straightforward stuff. I think remaining organized is probably the easiest way to not overcomplicate something like this, because it doesn't need to be complicated for you to have a good product, because people are listening to music because they enjoy the music. You don't need to have a million things sort of strobing off and sort of creating distractions if the music is good as it is. But yeah, you could have this roaming camera catching Squidward using a Teradek, sort of catching him around the club. You'd send the signal wirelessly over to your mixer on your fourth input, because this only has 4 inputs, so you're limited in that way. If you had a bigger mixer or bigger show or bigger needs from your client, you'd obviously just update your mixer or upgrade your mixer. But because we have 4, this workflow is perfectly fine. The reason why, on top of using the SDI signal because of the distance, we're using these converters to change the signal to HDMI. But when we have this workflow, we can also send signal from the mixer back to the camera, which will allow us to control the camera from the desk. So that's like color correction, color balancing, managing audio, all of those types of different things you can manage from your desk if you can create that two-way signal path. So on cameras like the Blackmagic Studio camera, which I have here. Hold on. Oh, that's heavy. So on this camera here, which is the Blackmagic Studio 4K Pro, you have two SDI inputs. It's probably out of focus, but you can see them anyway. They're right there. One isn't in, one isn't out. The out obviously sends the video signal from the lens out to your mixer, and the signal that is coming back from the mixer, which is being sent in to the camera, it's just going to carry information. Like with this camera, you can send your program, which is coming from your mixer, back to your camera, so your cameraman can see what the action is just by pressing a button. Not every camera can do that, but when you send the signal back, those are the types of things you can do. If you're using a mixer like the ATEM Studio mixer, that's it, like ATEM, something like this. No, it's not this one, my bad. This is a better example. This is an upgrade of the version that I used to have. So you have your ins and outs. You can go directly into this because this is an SDI mixer, whereas the one we're using is a HDMI mixer. But that way we can have the camera controls, so that way it's much easier for us, especially if we want to sit in one place, balance the cameras, as opposed to shouting across a room or whatever maniacal way you would use to balance your cameras. We learned a lot. We learned a lot. I wouldn't do a lot of the same things that I did then now, but it was good times.